You've known that this wasn't love. You just didn't know what else to call it because nobody else told you that real love doesn't feel like managing somebody else's moods. They say if they wanted to be with you, they would, but that really only makes sense if you've never been trained to chase love that hurts. If you've never mistaken someone pulling away for some kind of cue to get closer, right? If your worth hasn't ever really felt like it's tied to whether or not someone chooses you. Because for some of us, the more they reject us, the harder we try. We call it love, but it's not. It's survival. I'm Lisa Sonni, and this is Real Talk Relationships Uncensored. This episode is for anybody who's ever felt that ache, trying to hold on to somebody who keeps slipping away, for the women who are just tired of explaining and proving and shrinking and just never feeling good enough. And I want to say something really clearly here. You're not pathetic. You're not broken. You're not needy. I see all these videos online that just sort of shame women into not choosing better, but you were taught by experience or maybe by survival that love had to be earned. So let's unlearn that. A lot of us were never taught what real love actually looks like. We were taught how to perform for love. We learned how to read moods and stay small and just brace for somebody else's outburst or crappy feelings. We learned how to be good so we wouldn't trigger them, we wouldn't upset anybody. But then when they go cold or ghost us or mock our feelings, it doesn't even feel like a red flag because we're used to it. So it feels like a test, some kind of chance to prove that we're worth staying for. That's what gets triggered when someone kind of runs hot and cold or shuts down emotionally. You scramble, right? You want to win them back so badly. You want to fix it. You want to make things feel okay again. But that's why you don't leave. That's why you explain and over-explain and over-function, why you let things slide that you swore to yourself you never would. Because some part of you believes that being chosen is the only thing that proves that you matter. And this is typically really unconscious and it's not logical. Maybe you even know it's toxic, definitely toxic. You know that it hurts, right? But you also know that you shouldn't be working this hard. Your body isn't thinking logically. It's actually just responding to being left. It's responding like being left is dangerous. So for some of us, and listen, for some of us, it actually was dangerous, right? I'm going to give you an example. When I was in my 20s, I was dating this professional football player. And at first I thought I was lucky, right? I was like, so smitten. But I actually knew deep down that he was cheating. Call it woman's intuition, whatever. I couldn't prove it yet, but all the signs were there. The messages, the sneaky, the hiding his phone, just the vibe shift overall, right? The women at events kind of giving me that look. I would lay in bed next to this guy. I would stare at the ceiling while he was sleeping. My heart's racing. I still remember the first time I went through his phone, and I felt like such garbage for doing it because fundamentally, I don't actually believe in going through people's phones. But I was going through his emails, his text messages. I absolutely had to prove it. I was looking for anything that would make it just undeniable to me. But here's the truth. I wasn't waiting for proof. I was waiting for permission, right? I needed permission from myself to leave and still feel like I had won. I had enough evidence. I didn't want to walk away feeling like I was just some other girl that he cheated on. I wanted to prove that I was, I don't know, better than them maybe, that I was the one that was worth staying for. My nervous system wasn't thinking clearly. And back then, I didn't even know what a nervous system was. I was just in survival mode. I just wanted to stay connected to him at any cost. And for me, this didn't really start in relationships. It actually started in childhood, right? My sister misbehaved, but I didn't. I was the good girl, the good one. I was maybe a little sassy sometimes, sure. My mother would say that I had an attitude, but I wasn't causing trouble, right? I got good grades, I helped out, but that's when I was noticed. That's when I felt seen, not for how I felt, but for how I performed. So really early on, I learned if you want to be loved, be useful, be easy, be good, follow the rules. That followed me into every single relationship, right? When something felt off, I never looked at him. I always looked at what I needed to fix in me. And then you add that we're all kind of taught that as women, right? That love is earned through effort, that a good woman stays loyal to a broken man. That real romance really looks like chasing someone down, right? So when love hurts, we don't walk away, we try harder. And that's because we were taught that that's what love is. And honestly, the truth is, listen, this shows up in so many ways, right? Staying with someone who cheats, but they say they love you. Forgiving someone over and over just to prove that you're loyal. And women in particular, right? We are conditioned to be forgiving and loyal. That matters so much. That's part of what it is to be a good woman, right? You're shrinking so you don't intimidate them. You're explaining yourself 15 ways, hoping that just one of them lands, that'll make it where they understand. We're accepting crumbs and calling it love. You might even end up defending yourself to them, maybe to others even. You might even end up defending yourself to them, right? Even to other people, because if you admit that the relationship is unhealthy, then you have to admit that they were never safe to begin with. And that is a really hard thing to face. I struggled so much. In fact, I left a pretty good guy to be with that football player. And look what my consequence was. I always looked at that like that was my punishment. And at the end of the day, you just start tolerating things that you swore you would never accept. You never thought you'd be the kind of person that would stay after someone cheated or someone was abusive to you or mean to you. We all think we would leave. I see that online a lot, right? You should have left. You picked him, as if women choose to be with someone awful. There is so much more to this, and it is so much deeper. In so many cases, the truth is it's not because you don't see the problem, right? It's because you're desperate to prove that you're worth choosing, and you don't even realize that's what you're doing. So I want to ask you, if love has to be earned, is that even love? If someone only stays because you abandon your needs, is that love? Or is that fear? If every single disagreement is going to end with you apologizing, and if every boundary that you try to set just makes them pull away, if every moment of honesty just gets flipped on you, then what are you trying to save? Here's the part that we just literally don't talk about enough, right? They finally come back. You get the apology, you get the I miss you, the soft voice. It doesn't even feel like love. Think about it. It feels like relief. You exhale, your chest kind of loosens up, your stomach settles. It's not healing, right? It's a hit. It is a chemical hit to your nervous system. It's a dopamine rush that's like, okay, you're safe again, even though literally nothing has changed. And that hit of dopamine never lasts, right? It fades. And here we go again with the silent treatment, with the stonewalling, the coldness, the criticism, the devaluation or gaslighting, manipulation. Then you're on edge again, wondering what the hell you did this time. So you're scrolling and reading and replaying conversations in your mind. And here we go with the cycle again. That's how people stay stuck. Not because they don't know it's wrong. It's because the push and pull, the hot and cold, it becomes addictive. The truth is, in an abusive relationship, he's the pain and the comfort, the knife and the Band-Aid. And that is confusing as hell. So even when it's painful, it's familiar. And I hear this all the time from my clients. I know I should leave, but I can't stop thinking about him. God, I miss him so much. Physically hurts. I feel like I'm losing part of myself. And that is because, right, you're not just losing him, you are losing yourself. You're losing the version of you that existed inside the relationship. So even if that version of you was exhausted or walking on eggshells or hurting, you still grieve her because listen, she fought so hard. So I want to talk about what this does to your body because this is not just emotional, right? It's physical. When somebody who's hurt you comes back, even a little bit, even a text message, but really comes back, your body floods with relief. So what happens is your cortisol drops, your heart rate slows, you feel calm, maybe euphoric, you feel grounded, but it's not because anything has actually changed. It's because the danger, which is really just like the fear of being abandoned, it feels like it's past. But then the cycle continues. They disappear again, you crash, you can't sleep, you can't eat, or you overeat, you can't stop checking your phone. And none of this is actually because you are obsessed with the person. It's actually because your whole system is just dysregulated. So yeah, it is hard to leave. It's hard to stop trying because walking away means asking, what was this all for? Was this just for nothing? What does it say about me if I gave everything and it still wasn't enough? Why was I never enough? Those are the kinds of questions that I see people get really stuck with. Those are the kind of questions that keep people stuck. Even though you know the truth, it makes sense because giving up that kind of chase, it means facing something really scary. Maybe they were never capable of giving me what I needed. Maybe they were pretending the whole time. Maybe this wasn't real. Maybe I stayed because I needed to feel like I was enough. But that's not where healing really starts, okay? It doesn't start with insight. It doesn't even start with knowing that they're bad for you. I wish that it did, but it actually starts with understanding all the labels. And understanding all the labels is really just the beginning. You're going to start naming things. You're going to start reading every book. But even through all of that, you'll stay stuck until you stop trying to earn your worth by being good enough. You want to be good enough for someone else instead of yourself. You've got to stop trying to convince them to see you. You need to stop making their behavior mean something about you, because what you're trying to fix isn't even the relationship. It's actually the feeling that you're only lovable if they stay. And if they stay, maybe then you matter, right? If they walk away, then hey, what does that say about you? What if it says nothing about you and everything about them? So that loop, that voice, they're not crazy and it's not actually irrational. It's the familiarity of every time you've had to work for closeness in your life. Every single time that you were made to feel like your needs were too much or that love really came with strings. Too many women believe that they have to do something to be loved, to be cool enough, to be hot enough, to be young enough, skinny enough, loyal enough, supportive enough. Don't complain, don't be jealous, don't be too much. And then somebody starts pulling away. You don't even see it as a problem. Maybe you see it as like a test. Maybe you feel kind of panicked. Oh, what did I do wrong, right? Should I send a message? Do I apologize even though I didn't do anything? I see women start rehearsing their text messages, editing them, and you show them to your friends. You're writing these long messages just to explain that you're not trying to fight. You're just trying to connect. Then you wait. You look at your phone, you look again, you look again, you try to distract yourself, but it's there, right? That deep ache, that spin. And none of this is because you're dramatic. My abuser called me dramatic all the time. It's also not because you're too sensitive. It's because you were taught that love is unstable. So if you want to keep it, you better earn it, right? You better earn it. Maybe you grew up being praised for being easy, for being quiet, for being helpful, for not having boundaries, not for saying no. Maybe somebody loved you, but only when you weren't a burden, only when you mirrored them, right? Only when you didn't need too much. So you learned to basically hustle for connection. You learned to be exactly who they needed you to be, to kind of shrink yourself so that they didn't have to grow. That's what you're used to. Then healthy love's not going to feel exciting. Kindness is going to feel suspicious. Calm definitely feels boring. You are going to say things like, you know what? I don't want to date a guy who's too nice, because your body's not used to that peace. It's used to stress and chaos, and it's used to chasing. That's why it's so hard to stop. It's not because you don't see what's happening. The truth is, I think we often see it. We just may not consciously see it. We might tell ourselves something. We might be in denial. It could be betrayal blindness. It could be a trauma bond. But letting go means that you have to give up that person, the one that's like, if I love them, maybe then they'll stay. If I love them in the right way, it'll be enough. But letting go also means facing this grief, that truth that maybe the love that you wanted from them isn't coming and is never going to come. And frankly, maybe it never was. That is brutal, right? You're not just losing the relationship. You're losing this version of you that hoped, that waited, this version of you that tried so hard, even when she was exhausted. I was exhausted emotionally. I didn't even know you could be so exhausted emotionally. One thing I tell myself now is I didn't fail, I survived, right? And it was the only way that I knew how at the time. And learning how to do this differently was probably the hardest thing that I have ever done in my entire life. So let's be honest. How many more times are you going to confuse rejection with romance? How many more chances are you going to give somebody who just uses your empathy as a weapon against you? How long are you going to let all of your softness and nurturing and loyalty and empathy just be turned against you? The worst part of this actually isn't even that they don't love you in the way that you need. It's that you still think that you have to prove that you deserve it. And just to be clear, not everybody who does this to you is a narcissist. Yeah, some people are just emotionally immature. Some are scared. Some are manipulative. Some are abusive. And regardless of the label, pattern is the same. Although I do want to say we never want to just chalk abusiveness up to emotional immaturity, because that is not the same thing. That pattern is always you give more, they give less, you explain more, they avoid more, you open up, they shut down. And somehow you start to believe that it's your fault. So you're walking on eggshells, You're second guessing yourself. Maybe you soften your tone or plan when the best time to have the conversation is, even though realistically it's never the right time. You might start to think, ooh, don't say that. Don't say that. It'll make things worse. How can I say this? Ooh, how can I say this? Don't bring that up. They'll twist it. I know he gets mad when I say this or that. You lose trust in your own gut. The more you make yourself small, the more they pull away. And the more they pull away, the more you chase. It's such a trap. You end up doing all of this emotional labor, right? You're the one holding space and forgiving and bending. And they do the absolute bare minimum just to keep you hoping. That's why the kindness exists in these relationships. The truth is, the good exists to facilitate the bad. That's how they keep you hoping. Maybe they'll get it. Maybe they'll change. Maybe this time, finally, it'll be different. They'll understand. But if you're honest, hasn't that moment always kind of just been out of reach? You've been holding out for potential and you're getting nothing but crumbs. That's not a relationship. That is a loop. That is a crazy making loop. Logic is not going to break that. You can list every red flag. You can journal every night. You can talk ad nauseum to your friends. You can still find yourself staring at your phone, hoping that they're going to text you. Healing's not going to happen through logic. I always say you can't logic your way out of this. It happens when you create safety inside yourself. Your body needs to stop confusing this chaos with connection. So your nervous system has to stop chasing this high of being wanted, even briefly, because that's the trap. That's the hardest part. It's not the clarity. It's not realizing that this is unhealthy. You already know that. It's what happens after that. When your body still wants what your mind knows is wrong, unequivocally knows it. You sit there, you got every cell in your body just screaming, just give it one more try. Maybe this is it. That one more conversation, the one conversation that they beg for, that conversation is a trap. That baby, give me one more chance, trap. Watch out, because underneath it all, this feeling of you wanting to go back and just have that one more conversation, it is grief. You're not just sad about them. You're sad about the dream, the potential, right? The fantasy of who you thought they were and who you thought you might be with them, the life you were supposed to have with them. Because if they were never capable of loving you, then what does that say about all the effort that you put in, all the ways that you blamed yourself, all the nights that you stayed and cried, all the years lost? What did it just mean? Nothing, right? No, it meant that you were trying to prove that you mattered. I always forget who said this. It was a therapist on Instagram, but it was, what if we responded to victims and survivors with, I see how hard you tried to be loved, instead of this awful victim shaming? What you're really chasing is to prove that you mattered. You're not chasing love. You're probably not even chasing self-worth. You wanted them to stay so that you didn't have to wonder if you were enough. But here's what happens when they come back, right? Even with the half-hearted apology or a soft I miss you or the full fireworks of how they try to get you back, your body lights up with relief, your shoulders drop, and you can breathe again. But it's not because it's real love. It's because that panic went away. The withdrawal disappeared. It's not that you miss them. You miss the feeling of mattering, that little tiny window of relief when it sort of feels like maybe, just maybe, you're finally good enough. That is not love. That's addiction. That's trauma repetition. So what do? Not everything, just something, just one thing. Maybe you just stop explaining your worth. Maybe just stop scanning your phone, try to shut your brain off, build some tools to stop the rumination, right? You want to let the craving rise, but not react to it. So maybe you text a safe friend again, or just come back to yourself again and again and again and again and again. It takes a million times because at some point you will feel like home, but it never feels natural at first. Never. Your body is basically going to scream for what's familiar, and that could be chaos. So I really just want you to remember the pain that you feel now is not proof that you should go back. Do you hear me? It is not proof that you shouldn't leave, and it's not proof that you shouldn't go back. It is proof that you're healing, because it doesn't always look like a clean break. If you could just leave, you would. If you could just get over it, you would. Healing can be messy. It looks like craving them and not reaching out and going through the gut-wrenching pain in the middle of the night or crying in the grocery store. That's what it looks like sometimes. But it also looks like choosing you, even when it doesn't feel like enough. It's going to. You don't need to be perfect and you don't need to be over it. You just need to stop proving that you're worth keeping. Because here's the thing, you already are. So let's just connect this back to grief, because that's what this really is, right? You're not just missing the person, You're missing the feeling, the hope, the dream. You're grieving what it could have been, who you thought they were, who you'd hoped you'd be with them. Even if it was never real, even if it was mostly painful, you'll still grieve it. People always say you should be happy that they're gone or you should be happy that the relationship could end. That's not what it feels like. Grief feels like hell. For me, that lived in my chest. I would go to sleep thinking about him. I would wake up thinking about him. In fact, do you know that feeling when you wake up and just for like a minute or less, everything's normal and life isn't so terrible? And then you remember that it's over, or you remember that you are about to leave and it just floods you and you cry. You wake up every day hoping that it's going to feel different. Maybe you reread text messages or you go through pictures, you remember the good moments, and you feel like you are what made this worse. Maybe if you had just done one thing differently, not picked that one fight, not brought that thing up, that voice gets so loud that maybe I ruined it. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I wasn't supportive enough. I was honestly so perplexed by how I couldn't have been supportive enough. It never made sense to me. Now, in one of the hardest relationships that I was in one of the hardest relationships that I was in, one that took me the longest to leave, I knew deep down that it couldn't last. There was a point where I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I can do this forever. But I kept performing and I kept trying to be the good partner and loyal and grounded and supportive. But every time I disagreed, even calmly, he told me I wasn't supportive, that I was just like everybody else who left him. For some reason, that always hit me really hard. And I never stopped and asked, why do so many people leave him? I never thought, ooh, maybe that's a red flag. I heard that and thought, ooh, I can prove that I'm different. I can be the one who stayed. And it was never because he was amazing. It was because I needed to feel like I was enough. And that was the hook. It wasn't love. It wasn't the truth. And it definitely wasn't compatibility. Hindsight's 2020. We were never compatible. It was just a deep need to prove that I wasn't disposable. So years later, after he cheated, got with someone new, I found out this guy was feeding her the exact same lines, right? Don't just be another woman who leaves me. If I wanted to argue all the time, I would just still be with Lisa. Why'd that work on her? Why'd she stay, right? The same reason that I did. She wanted to be the exception. I am convinced that they are still together to prove that I was wrong, that I was the problem in the relationship. That's what keeps so many people stuck, though, right? It's not the person. It's this idea of being different, right? You want to be the one who changes them. You want to be the one who gets picked. Here's the absolute brutal truth. You weren't chasing them. You were chasing redemption. You just wanted to stop feeling like the woman who wasn't enough. You wanted to win a game that was rigged from the start. That's the part that nobody talks about, right? We think we're fighting for love. We're not. We're fighting to just not feel abandoned again, to not feel rejected or like we failed. But you were being left even while you were still in it, emotionally, spiritually, sometimes even physically. They just did it to you really slowly so you wouldn't even notice. Really covertly abusive relationships are often called death by 1,000 paper cuts. There's a reason for that. That's why you stayed, because walking away means admitting what it never was. That is the kind of grief that guts you. It doesn't hit you all at once. It comes in these god-awful waves. It's when a song just kind of hits different. It's when you see someone who looks like them, when your body still reacts to a ringtone that used to be theirs, right? It's not just heartbreak, it's betrayal. But the thing is, right, it's not just theirs, it's yours. The deepest betrayal is what you keep doing to yourself in order to hold on to this person that doesn't even matter. They feel like they matter. But part of you already knows that. I believe that. You've known that this wasn't love. You just didn't know what else to call it because nobody else told you that real love doesn't feel like managing somebody else's moods and being afraid and walking on eggshells, that being chosen should never cost you your voice and who you are, that someone pulling away isn't just this sign that you need to try harder. It's literally a sign that they are not capable of meeting you where you are. You didn't fail, you just woke up. And now you get to decide what to do with that truth. But I don't want you to romanticize your pain, right? We're not going to call it loyalty when it's self-abandonment. We're not going to call it growth when it's just this next loop of proving and pleasing. Call it what it is. It's an old pattern. It's a wound. It's a nervous system trying so hard to stay safe the only way that it knows how. But then I want you to ask yourself, listen, what do I want to know instead? Ask yourself what it would feel like to not have to chase anyone ever again. What would that feel like if I didn't have to earn love? The hardest relationships are not always the ones that break you. They're the ones that reveal how long you've actually been broken, how long you've been living without boundaries. I mean, I was easily in my late 30s when I even thought about boundaries. It's how long you've confused emotional labor with love, how long you've been performing instead of just receiving. If that's where you are right now, if you're just kind of in the thick of this, I want you to know that you're not weak for missing them or not being able to leave yet or for wanting to go back. You're not stupid for staying as long as you have or did. You were just a human being and you believed in the potential. You hoped that they change. They promised that they change. I know that. You thought that if you stayed long enough, that you would be enough. And it just doesn't make you pathetic. Ignore everyone who says you picked them and you should have picked better and you stayed. Ignore all of that. This is something that makes you loyal and it makes you someone who tried. Now you get to stop trying. You can actually take a breath. You can rest. You can stop proving. You actually get to come back to yourself. And I can assure you, as much as I would love to say it's going to feel great right off the bat, probably going to feel awful. So be prepared for that because that's the withdrawal, but it's not a sign to go back. It is not a sign to go back. I'm saying that twice on purpose. It is a sign that your body is just adjusting to this new reality. You never had to chase love to begin with. So what does it really mean to stop chasing? It means telling the truth, right? Not to them, but to yourself. So say to yourself, I didn't stay because it was love. I stayed because I needed to feel like I mattered. That means admitting that you tolerated things that just broke your heart. And it's not because you didn't know better, but because your body was literally clinging to anything that felt like connection. That's very human. We're going to own the patterns, right? You begged silently with all this energy. You twisted yourself because you wanted so desperately to avoid conflict. You gave, you gave, you gave, and you hoped that it would finally be enough to make them stay. And then you ask yourself, if I don't chase, then who am I? Because see, for a lot of women, their identity, the fixer, that ride or die, I hate that phrase, the one who's really always there no matter what, it's familiar. It's who you've always had to be, but you don't have to be that anymore. Walking away means that you actually get to let go of that version of you. But honestly, I think that's what makes it so hard. The truth is, you're not grieving real love. You are grieving the story, the potential. It's a fantasy. You're grieving this version of them that only existed in the small moments that they were pretending to be kind. All these moments either came right before or right after they hurt you. That's what made them feel so powerful. But then they're going to push you away and they'll pull you back. And it's just to make you crave more, just enough to make you think that there was something there worth saving. But I want to tell you it wasn't love. That intermittent reward hit your nervous system like a drug. So your brain connects chaos with closeness. It connects stress with love and anxiety with meaning. That's not your fault. That's conditioning. And once you see it, you don't get to unsee it. But that's the good thing. That's the real work. That's when it begins. Breaking any of these patterns, it's not about being strong. It's about being honest. It's about sitting in that horrible discomfort, sitting in the loneliness or the anger. It's craving it and not reaching out. It's just letting that feeling pass without trying to fix it. That is hard. You need a lot of emotional regulation skills to get through that. You're the woman who's going to walk away. You're the woman who's choosing your truth over his potential. The kind of love that lasts, it doesn't need to be earned. It meets you where you are and it doesn't leave.